There was a time when Australia made more of what it needed. Cars, fuel, and the things in your home, so much of it was local. Today, Australia imports over $600 billion in goods a year. Manufacturing once accounted for $1 in $4 of national output. Now it sits below 6%. That shift did not happen overnight. How it unfolded changes the way you see the country today. On the outskirts of Elizabeth, South Australia, the hum of the Holden plant once set the rhythm of daily life. Each morning, men and women pulled on their boots and walked through the gates, ready for another shift on the line. The air inside carried the sharp scent of oil and warm steel, punctuated by the clang of tools and the steady thud as panels met frames. For decades, the Holden badge was stamped not just on cars, but on a sense of belonging and purpose. There was pride in knowing that what rolled off the line would soon be seen on roads across the country, built by neighbours, friends and family. A retired assembly worker remembers the camaraderie of the lunchroom, the ritual of clocking in, the feeling that his hands were shaping something real and lasting. He talks about the satisfaction of spotting a new Commodore on the street, knowing he'd fitted the seats or tightened the bolts. The plant was more than a workplace. It was a community anchor, a place where generations learned their trade and built a future. The pay wasn't always high, but there was security in the work and dignity in the craft. This wasn't just true in Elizabeth. From Geelong to Port Kembla, factories and workshops gave Australians the sense that the country could provide for itself. Hardware stores stocked tools made in Sydney, and furniture in the living room often came from a local joinery. Self-reliance was more than a slogan. It was a lived reality, woven into the fabric of everyday life. For many, those years now feel distant, but the memory of making and the pride of building remain vivid, even as the world outside the factory gates has changed. The numbers tell a story of steady contraction, one that stretches across generations. In the early 1960s, manufacturing stood as the backbone of the Australian economy, responsible for $1 in every $4 of national output. This was a period when factory work provided not just jobs, but a sense of certainty, when it seemed that industry and community would always go hand in hand. But as the decades passed, the weight of manufacturing in the national ledger began to slip. By the turn of the century, what was once 1 in 4 had become 1 in 8. The decline was gradual, measured not in sudden collapses, but in a slow rebalancing of what the country made and how it earned its living. Official statistics from the Productivity Commission and the Australian Bureau of Statistics show the arc in stark terms. In 1950, manufacturing made up more than 20% of Australia's gross domestic product. Fast forward to last year, and that figure had fallen to just 5.8%. The most recent data, from 2023 to 2024, placed manufacturing's gross value added at $146.8 billion, or 5.5% of gross domestic product, a fraction of its former standing. A former factory manager, looking back at the industry's heyday, puts it plainly: it felt like we were building the country, not just running a business. That sense of purpose has been replaced by a different reality, one where the numbers on the national accounts speak louder than the clang of machinery. The shrinking share of manufacturing is not just a statistical trend, but a shift in how Australians see their place in the world and what the nation is able to provide for itself. Australia's appetite for imports and services now runs to figures that would have seemed unimaginable a generation ago. In the 2023 to 2024 financial year, the national import bill reached $614.1 billion Australian dollars. Only 12 months later, that number climbed again, topping $629.9 billion Australian dollars. These are not abstract sums. They represent the flow of fuel, vehicles, electronics, and everyday necessities crossing the nation's borders, year after year. Refined petroleum is the single largest import category. In 2024, Australia brought in $47.3 billion worth of fuel, petrol, diesel and jet fuel, most of it sourced from refineries in Asia and the United States. This is the lifeblood of transport, agriculture and industry. Yet the vast majority now arrives by tanker, not from local refineries. Motor vehicles follow close behind. In the same year, passenger car imports totaled $35.8 billion. The badge on the bonnet might carry a familiar name, but the car itself almost certainly began its journey on a ship from Japan, China, or the United States. Together, these two categories alone account for more than $80 billion, more than the entire annual economic output of some Australian states. The scale of these numbers is a reminder that the country's economic ties to the outside world are not just strong, but woven into the fabric of daily life. The story of import dependence is not hidden in the fine print of trade statistics. It is written in every litre of fuel pumped, every new car sold, and every shipment that docks at a major port. Telecommunications gear and computers have become as much a part of Australian life as the family car or the kitchen table. In the last financial year, Australians imported $17.1 billion worth of telecom equipment, routers, mobile phones, network cables, alongside $12.6 billion in computers and related hardware. These are not luxury items tucked away in office towers. They are in every home, every small business, every school. The digital backbone of daily life, calls, emails, streaming, even the cash register at the local bakery, relies on devices that almost all arrive by sea or air from overseas factories. China stands at the centre of this supply chain. Of the $120 billion in goods Australia imported from China last year, telecom equipment and computers made up a large share, joined by electrical machinery, vehicles and furniture. The furniture in an average living room, once the work of local joiners, is now more likely to have arrived in a shipping container from Guangdong than from a workshop in Ballarat or Wagga Wagga. For small businesses, this shift is more than a line in the accounts. A furniture maker in regional Victoria, who once sourced every part locally, now relies on imported drawer runners and panels to stay afloat. He describes the choice as both a necessity and a compromise. Lower costs, but less control, and a sense that something has been lost. The ledger of imports is written not just in billions, but in the quiet calculations of shopkeepers and tradespeople, adjusting to a world where the essential tools and materials of their trade come from far beyond Australia's shores. Rules and market forces did not shift overnight. For decades, Australia's economy operated under a protective shield. High tariffs, sometimes reaching 40%, kept imported goods expensive and local factories busy. This protectionist era shaped the manufacturing corridor that stretched from Port Kembla to Geelong. By the early 1980s, the ground was already moving. The Button Plan, named for Industry Minister John Button, targeted the car industry with a program of gradual tariff cuts and rationalisation. The goal was to make local manufacturing leaner, but it also opened the door to foreign competition. At the same time, the Hawke and Keating governments launched sweeping economic reforms. Tariff schedules were slashed across the board. By 1998, the average tariff on manufactured goods had fallen to just 5%, and by 2000, many items faced no tariff at all. The national competition policy followed, pushing for market-driven efficiency in everything from utilities to transport. Government procurement rules and privatisation further encouraged companies to source globally, not just locally. An economic historian puts it simply: the rules changed, and so did the logic of where things were made. Australia's policy settings and the rise of global supply chain moved in lockstep, making imported goods not just cheaper, but often the default choice. The cost equation, once tilted in favour of local jobs and industry, now favoured the lowest global price. The result was a structural shift in how Australians bought everyday things, and a loss of visible capacity to make them at home. When the flow of imports is steady, the risk of dependence can seem distant, almost theoretical. But recent years have revealed how quickly that sense of security can unravel. In early 2020, as the world scrambled for protective equipment, Australia found itself at the end of a long supply chain, waiting for shipments of masks and gloves that simply did not arrive. Hospitals rationed supplies and prices soared overnight. The shortages were not limited to healthcare. By 2021, a global shortage of semiconductors left new cars stranded in ports and showrooms, with waiting lists stretching from weeks to months. Trucking companies faced their own crisis when shipments of diesel additives from overseas dried up, forcing freight operators to idle vehicles and pushing up the cost of moving goods across the country. These disruptions exposed a deeper vulnerability. Australia now trades raw materials, iron ore, coal and wheat for finished goods that are essential to daily life. When the ships stop or the factories overseas slow down, there is little local backup. The ability to weather a shock, to keep shelves stocked and businesses running, is no longer something that can be taken for granted. The old balance, where the country made much of what it needed, has shifted. What was once a cushion of resilience has been traded for efficiency and variety, but at the cost of self-reliance. For many, the question is not whether trade brings benefits, but how much risk comes from relying so heavily on others for the basics of modern life. Today, manufacturing makes up just 5.5% of Australia's economy, while imports top $629.9 billion, and everyday goods, from fuel to furniture, arrive from overseas. The question now is how much self-reliance a nation can afford to lose before it becomes a risk you feel at home.